You are now listening to Creative Aura.
Hi everyone, welcome to Creative Aura. I'm Nalia.
And I'm Mary.
And I'm very, very excited to introduce our guest today, Amani Eccles. I'm so excited to have you on the platform. Amani is Mary's partner and a co-founder of Hoop As You Are. So with all the incredible conversations we've had with Mary about her creative project, Haya, we thought it would be perfect to also hear from Amani and, discuss a little bit more about Hoop As You Are from your perspective, and also from the perspective of what that creative process has been like, specifically growing the brand and executing that brand strategy. Anyways, welcome Amani. We're so happy to have you on here.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I heard you all say that this is your 50th episode, or just did your 50th episode, and so I'm super excited to be joining you all after having accomplished that.
Yeah, you're 51st, I would say. So yeah, we're excited to chat with you, Amani. I think the audience have heard a lot about my perspective of Haya, but as my partner and my co-founder, would love for the audience to also hear about your perspective of Haya and the vision for it. But before we get started in the nitty-gritty stuff, I'll hand it to Dahlia. I think she has some.
Yes. Just to get us warmed up and getting ready for this conversation, Amani, we have a couple of quick fire questions. So, just name the first thing that comes to mind. Okay. So if you could have a creative new hobby, you could start that now, what would it be?
Oh, I feel like something around singing or dance. I feel like, because I like to sing, I feel like I hum more than I sing because I'm terrible at remembering the words to songs, but I do like singing. And then I feel like dancing would be cool just to like get better at the skill. So
is there a specific type of dance that you would, be interested in doing?
Not necessarily, but I did, when you asked that, I was thinking like contemporary dance where people are just like really free flowing and expressive with their body and taking up a lot of space. I feel like there's like abstract storytelling in contemporary dance. We're really open. I could learn any type of dance.
No, that's so cool. I definitely visualize the image. But okay, the second fire question for you is, who is a creative artist that you admire? And specifically, if there's an album that you've been attracted to regarding, maybe if that, what comes to mind there too?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind in terms of creative is Issa Rae, but specifically because she, like, if you think of the awkward Black girl, like, took like an aspect of her identity that could have been like critiqued, or maybe she received like feedback at some point in time that didn't sit well with her, and then kind of made humor out of it, and it just really became really great at showing different sides of the Black experience through the different work that she does. Music album, I'm not sure. I mean, I really like Doechii and the way she expresses, even though the song Anxiety is pretty annoying. I do I love this song, but it's overplayed at this point. But I do like the messaging in it, because it's relatable sometimes.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And even with the perspective around Issa Rae, what's so incredible about that is that she's expressing that through film, through her business, through her enterprise. So that's incredible. Thank you, Amani.
Yeah, and I think just to kick us off, Amani, in terms of Haya and what Haya means to you, and more specifically, like the role you've played in creating our brand and our vision in terms of social media and even the graphics. I wanted to take a step back and just start from the very beginning. Again, I think I've shared my perspective of what Haya means to me in terms of having a community and space for women and queer folks to play basketball. But I want to hear from you. What does Haya Hoop as You Are mean to you, and why create a space like Haya?
Hmm. Yeah, so I grew up playing basketball. That was my only sport. I started really early, like in elementary school at like, the YMCA rec center, and my dad played the sport, and so it was definitely something that connected me with him. But just in general, I gravitated the sport really early on and stuck with it through high school. After high school, I didn't really have the desire to play in college, um, and frankly needed a break. I feel like I experienced a lot of burnout,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of pressure also associated with the sport and playing not only in school but in club sports outside of school, and was tired. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of practices, it's a lot of expectations, a lot of coaches telling you what to do, even if they can't do it themselves. And it's just frankly annoying at times. So I did not touch a basketball like through my whole undergrad career for like 4 years. Not my first. And then Mary and I met in grad school and COVID hit. And I also learned that you were really into
Mm-hmm.
basketball. And so we just started playing pickup throughout COVID, just shooting the ball around and then playing one on one. And it was really exciting. Like, I feel like it's kind of like riding a bike again. Like you
Yeah.
dust off the rust and then you get back into the flow. So that was really exciting. And at the time, I was on my own fitness journey and
Mm-hmm.
becoming active again because I had really stopped being active during school, just the pressure of school and wanting to perform at a high level. I let other aspects of my wellness and fitness at the back burner. So it aligned well with just also me trying to move my body more and feel more in shape. And then we moved out to Maryland. And again, like it was, we had this shared love of basketball, but we weren't really playing regularly. And then I was so grateful because you found this community rec center link of open gym basketball. And to be honest, like I wasn't looking and was like, I don't know, like a little shy. I'm like, I don't know who's there. What if everybody's like a lot better than me, or you don't know the age or the demographics? And then I also was trying to, because we moved out here together and trying to build community. So I was like, okay, she found this, like I'll let her explore this on her own. So she went originally one session and then was also like quickly looped into other opportunities to play basketball with the group. And then she encouraged me, like, you should come, like it's a cool group. So I did, and then fell back in love with the sport. Immediately bought like my ankle braces because I sprained my ankle
Oh.
too frequently. And so I quickly invested back into like the equipment and have been playing ever since. And so that didn't directly answer your question about how we got to Haya, but it was, I feel like it's
Yeah.
important in knowing some like my
Yes,
background and connection to
absolutely.
the sport.
Yeah, and what's so incredible, Amani, is that basketball was like it became multiple layers in terms of your physical health, your the way that you were connecting to your community, connecting with your partner. So it's something that, in terms of just the and reconnecting with this passion, it's trickling down to all these aspects of your life. But I'm so curious, what shifted from seeing this as a passion, something that is connecting you with the community, or, it sounds like it was, it reignited something and even investing back in the equipment. But what shifted from seeing this as a passion project to more of a larger business project as well?
Yeah. So we were playing with this new basketball community through the rec center for probably a year before we thought of building upon it. Um, and we were just brainstorming like what would an additional community or an expansion of this community look like. And you knew of She Hoops LA
Mm-hmm.
in LA. Um, and there was a former classmate of ours who
Yeah.
had also posted opportunities out in Chicago. And so we started seeing these little basketball hubs and
Mm-hmm.
community spots for women and queer folk. I feel like at the tail end of COVID, or like right after kind of COVID, I mean, COVID still exists, but after like
Yes, it does.
Yes.
like the main like pandemic response, I felt like these communities were popping back up as people crave more spaces to connect. Um, and so we just wanted a space where it was explicitly for queer people, women. There's not, I don't know, if you go to the rec center and just try to play pickup with the group of guys that are there, it's a really frustrating experience. You're not passed the ball, you're not taken seriously. There's like this macho energy that feels like unproductive and not fun. So we just wanted more spaces to connect with women and queer people. And wanted it to be more than just a place to play basketball, but to have social events. And essentially that, because you mentioned like the business piece, and that is a piece that we're still like exploring, because for us to be able to offer these services, we need to generate like some revenue, because we're not trying to finance this all through our own pockets. And so that's a challenge that we're navigating, and how to, create a community resource that needs to make money in order to sustain itself, which is not like a problem unique to us.
I just wanted to add that, yeah, I think that's something very interesting, and even the distinguishing of that wording, because it's very real to call out that it's something that is still very much in the passion aspect of it. That what's really driving it forward, and not exactly yet the business and revenue piece. So I really appreciate that distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'll mention is co-founding this with you really helps, because I think immediately I go to like, oh, how do we just generate revenue from the get-go? But I think having your expertise in like, we need to build the community piece and start there first is really important. So would love to hear a little bit more about like, yes, we filed as an LLC. Yes, we have, we've invested in this status of being for profit in quotes, but all our offerings are reinvested back to the community, and still like we're still building this without generating any revenue or profit per se. Yeah, can you touch base on a little bit about like why invest in the brand that makes community members feel comfortable first, rather than focus on like more the money piece and the profit piece?
Yeah. I think in creating Haya, my number one goal was to build connections. Well, because one, we're not DMV Maryland natives. So I was like, we need to do our due diligence of what is already out there, so we're not stepping on toes, or duplicating programs that are counterintuitive, and not you know building programs up. And so I was like, we need to do networking with, there's a Baltimore queer basketball group, let's chat with them or let them know about what we're trying to do and just get their feedback. We connected with DC groups that were geared toward women and queer folks, and just having all these different thought partners along the way. And then when it came to recruitment, I feel like you also have to have kind of like an open door to begin with, so that people, it's already, because a lot of our promotion of our group has been either word of mouth through our own connections or on social media. And which has been really successful, but if you're meeting us through social media, you don't really know what you're signing up for. You don't really know us. Our social media accounts, our personal accounts are private. And so you have to do a lot of building of trust. And so we did that through like some more personal posts on our Instagram, so people could at least put a face to the name. And I think it's also important when you're trying to build a space for people who might be lacking those spaces, so specifically the queer community, I err on the side of making them as inclusive as possible and asking for, like membership dues or funding in some way, like right away, was something I just was not comfortable with. And so our first offerings have been free. Like we fundraised, we did a March Madness bracket where we split the pot with the winner. But I won. So we got all the money and invested it back into Haya. And so our first 5 open gyms are totally free. And so it's a great way for people to, kind of step out of their comfort zone, take a risk, meet up with people they've never met before, and get familiar with who we are and our vibes and our energy so that they know if they want to continue on without having to like invest their own money yet. So yeah, I just feel like it's better this way to just start off connecting with folks.
Yes.
And it's advantageous to us. Like I feel like sometimes in the context of the business world, you operate in silos because you're trying to outcompete another group, and that's by no means productive to what we're working towards. So it's better to work in partnership.
Yeah, thank you so much for just sharing because what I really appreciate about what you laid out in that process is just how thoughtful you two approach this project, being really intentional about understanding what already was available and addressing the specific gaps that you two felt were necessary to address. I think that is so, special in your project. Even in the perspective of social media and the way that you're approaching the community, the queer community that you specifically want to serve, it's very intentional. It's very community driven. And I think that that's what makes the project so special. And, in taking a step back, Moni and Mary, and taking a step back to the process of getting to the point that you are recruiting and you're inviting members, what did it take to get to that point in terms of getting the necessary resources or even the initial setup and tools to launch the project? What was that process like, and what were some of the challenges in that process?
Yeah, the first was us getting serious about it and being willing to invest some of our own money up front. Whether it was just like the logistics of becoming an LLC or, like little funds for Instagram ads to promote Haya in the basketball league that we eventually partnered with the county rec center. So that was the first step. And then I'm so sorry. What was the question?
Yeah, just some challenges in launching the brand and getting to the point where you're recruiting, and what were some of those challenges in getting that initial support and setup? And just to give you some context, for example, one thing that really impressed me when I was chatting with Mary about your your the way that you all approach even that connection with the county, that was very unique. You had to build out a business plan and have some lessons in that process. So yeah, I just wanted to hear your perspective on some of those initial challenges that came before the launch and even some of that recruitment process.
Yeah, I think one, investing our own time and resources and being serious about it, putting in the hours of kind of thinking about our brand and who our target audience was. I honestly think that required a significant amount of time, because we would chat with different folks or mentors and they were like, are you trying to have this group be really competitive or really casual in terms of like skill level and competitiveness? Are you open to all ages or only a certain age group? Are you looking to only offer these set of services? Or are you striving for this in the future? And I think our response so often was, we want to appeal to it all. Like, we don't want it to be super competitive, but we don't want it to be too casual. We don't want it to be only a specific age group, because people play basketball all different ages, and your age doesn't necessarily reflect like your physical abilities or how you want to play or who you want to play with. And so it took a significant amount of time just to shape who we were trying to target and welcome into this community, which was important to then thinking about a pitch, a proposal to any future partner, which was a process in itself, because I feel like there was a few different groups that we were considering working with, and frankly, we went with the group that was excited first and was willing to say yes and take the chance on us first, which was the our county rec center. We went into there in person. We had a proposal. We had sent them a pitch deck. I don't know at this point if they looked at it thoroughly, but we did all of the work on our end to make it as official of a proposal as possible. And then from there, had more regular meetings with the county to put on our basketball league, which was really our first offering through Haya. But at this point, we're definitely trying to think of, now that our league is about to end next week, how to keep the momentum going and who to continue partnering with, who to build new partnerships with. So it's evolving.
I have a question on that, Amani, because I imagine that when you send over which I remember you all shared it with me, but you already had a logo, you had a color scheme, you had, like you said, an understanding of the community, a very specific community that you wanted to serve. That took a lot of, I'm sure, a creative process to get to the point when you are selecting the colors, you're selecting the logo. Can you tell us about, both of you share a little bit about what that process was like, and, coming ready to share the brand and already have a really tight creative strategy around your logo, your color scheme, your community?
It definitely started in conversations where we weren't even intentionally talking about Hoop As You Are. Like, just being in the car and being like, I feel like we could start something. Like, what would it be? What names sound catchy? What acronyms have a nice ring to it? And just being in a really fun, explorative state and not even knowing what that end goal or product would be. So I think we were brainstorming and chewing on it potentially even 6 months to a year before it came about, because we just were in this brainstorming phase of what we could create together. And then when we had a better idea of, like, we want to create this basketball community, I feel like did like the typical checklist of like, what's your mission? Who are you serving? What are your values? And then lots of networking and sharing the idea with others who we imagined would be our target demographic, to just bounce the ideas off of them, like hear what they would think. And through that process, a lot of networking, which is how we got connected with Ryan, who was like a friend of a friend's friend that we learned about at a dinner party. That was working to update their graphic design portfolio, was able to do the work for free, which we're so grateful for. It would be nice to like repay him in some way, like a t-shirt or something. But then he was like so kind and was able to sit with us through maybe 3 sessions or 3.5 sessions, where we were able to share our ideas that he then put into like a vision board, and had different mock-ups. And we were paying really close to, there's so much detail in creating a logo that can speak volumes to what you're trying to do as an organization. So the type of font, like there's some font that comes off really competitive, other font comes off more playful. Same with the color scheme, like a blue and black or a green and black might for some reason maybe come off like a little bit more competitive than what we chose, which is pink and purple. And even the imagery, like we have a person in our logo, and they did a really good job at making the logo not too like gendered in a certain way. But there was even some feedback that we gave, like, oh, maybe instead of a long ponytail, just make it like a little bun, or like something a little bit more discreet in the player, so that it appealed to like a more broader audience, or different different folks, because we don't all have long hair and ponytails. So I think it was just putting that much attention to that level of detail I think paid off in the long run, because I feel like we really hit the sweet spot. Like
We did, yeah.
it's a fun, competitive group
Yes.
of all different genders, sexualities, and so it's a really good time.
Yeah, and I think and I know I've shared it a lot, but yes, just the word of mouth and just talking about our vision freely and openly, almost like putting it out there, sharing it with folks, did lead us to the right people at the right time. As cliche as that sounds, I do think it was like serendipitous, almost like, oh, we just talked about this, and oh, here's a connection. They're looking to build their portfolio. They're like, and yeah, like Ryan ended up doing our logo, and then I think we also knew what we wanted to feel and the vibe of the logo and the color scheme and the pink and purple and even the ambiguous silhouette of our logo felt right. So I think everything you mentioned just felt like just the right timing at the right place and just almost talking about it consistently with other folks and people were meeting to just get that community feedback and information. Um, I think is led to where we're at now.
And I would add talking about it confidently,
Yeah.
like it's going to happen. Because I don't think, even among supporters, our peers, like there's some hesitation. Like, are you really going to do this? Like, this takes a lot
Yeah.
of time. Like, who's going to sign up for this? Like,
Yeah.
and we continue to, prove otherwise. Like, they're not haters, but
No,
they're
no.
just being like,
Healthy skepticism.
yeah, healthy skepticism about just what it takes to get this work done.
Yeah.
And then when you're communicating with partners, that's another place where you have to be really confident. So they're taking us to young women, queer young POC women of color, like seriously is also important.
Yeah. And I think I wanted to since we talked about a little bit about our logo and the color scheme and I've been pretty honest and transparent that our social media and all the graphics, you're the brainchild of the, our posts and the graphics. And of course, I tell them we collaborate, but I'd love for you to share, like, I mean, you don't have a graphic design background, nor like none of us have like kind of like a content creation or social media background, but can you share a little bit about maybe your process and when we're thinking of posting, even if it's promoting the league or recruitment or promoting a social event, what is that creative process and thinking look like for you when you're looking at a blank canvas and you're like, okay, here's where I'm started. Like, what does that look like for you as you're beginning that canvas?
Yeah, I was smiling really hard because part of it is just too much time on social media myself. So we're on TikTok and Instagram.
You are a certified content creator.
You know, you have to absorb ideas, and it's gotten easier as we've built our Instagram following because now I can switch over to that Instagram page and everything is women's basketball. It's like a curated like ecosystem of everything I need to know about women's basketball. So it's kind of easier to like also follow the trends because I will say like I try to work smarter, not harder. And like I am not a graphic designer by trade. And so sometimes I'm working from a blank canvas. Other times I'm using Canva and it's the tools that they have are templates and then reworking them. Or if there's a trend that is really interesting or works really well, I'll just, use the trend. Like people know it's a trend, so it's not necessarily um, co-opting people's work in a bad way. But so yes, keeping up with the trends and using tools to help when needed. And then, I mean, I was start in thinking about a blank canvas. There was significant time put into our logo colors, but then also the like complementary colors that you would use in post. So ours is like a darker blue and a like a turquoisey blue green that we use sometimes. The font is a pretty playful font generally, like it has rounded edges and looks really fun. And so that was important because I also at some point, maybe like in 5 years, our Instagram is probably going to look so different because we're just going to, do a refresh, like you all did with your podcast, and it's going to like take a different turn and look different. But I really wanted to avoid having to do that too soon. So trying to be really intentional with the posts that we put up, so I don't have to like wipe the whole thing clean in a year. The beginning, a lot of the posts were promotional because we weren't convening people, like we weren't bringing people together yet, so we were using a lot of like flyer type of images, and so it was helpful to start. But it was important to kind of like sprinkle in a reel every once in a while with our faces, or a post that shared a little bit of our story. And then as soon as people started playing with our logo on their jerseys, or we did any event like on our social media, because we needed people to see who's showing up. Like as somebody who didn't even want to go to the open gym the first time you signed up, like I kind of need to know what the room is looking like before I show up sometimes. And so that's important, that we're like transparent in who's showing up. So trying to have more storytelling with real people's faces as time moved on was really important. And something that I was proud of, we did a Pride post, Happy Pride, that featured us and then shared a little bit more about what the community means to us. But it's really hard to say about my creative process, I will say, because I like growing up, I like to draw a lot, I like to paint, like I would do some of those creative things. So I think with time, I got just a little bit more skilled with a creative eye.
All those sculpting and painting classes help.
Yeah.
And it's genuinely fun. So.
Well, what I love of you, like talking about the process of your social media strategy, is that there is like very specific things that you were thinking about with even like the font, the way you wanted to make sure that you are also sharing your story, making your faces part of the brand as well, which actually leads me to my next question, because, one of the things that Mary mentioned on the podcast was even just some challenges in being, in a way, the face of a brand. And, I'm curious to hear your perspective on that, Amani, if there's any, was there any challenges in that process as well for you?
Wait, so you shared challenges you had being the face?
I think I have a couple, but I can share mine.
Well, this is hitting way deeper. But I would say, to give a longer-winded answer, like one thing that I love about basketball is that I feel like, one, when you're on the court, is so freeing. Like you're so focused, present in the moment. You're kind of, you block everybody else out. You're not entirely thinking of the crowd. You're just in the moment. And the people that I've met through playing basketball, I feel like have been just like the best people, have been really diverse. A lot of queer people play basketball. And so I think it always just felt like a place where you could freely express. And that was really a safe haven for me growing up. Like basketball was core to my identity. I went to a diverse school, but it was predominantly white. And so I would grow up just like, I don't know, like typical story of like a Black girl in the suburbs. It's like you have certain classes where you're like the only Black person, and then you're in other classes where there's a lot of Black people. And basketball was one of those spaces where I saw myself and there was diversity among my peers, and a space where I had leadership roles. Like I was captain for a significant time on different teams throughout my childhood. And so it really felt like a safe haven where I could truly be me in all aspects of myself. I will say, having not had basketball in my life for a while and like trying to be that authentic version of myself outside of sports, has been challenging, like retrospectively, not as I was going through it, but retrospectively, because in my day job, I work in the maternal health policy space, and part of my role is doing a lot of conversations with the media. And so I was confronted with just what it feels like to be the face of an issue or speaking on behalf of a larger community. In my work is Black maternal health, but then always feeling like there's somebody else that could tell that story better, like because I'm not a mom. So in my mind I'm like, I could always, like, there's always somebody else that could be that better spokesperson. And so I think um it connects to the work with Hoop As You Are, because being the face of something always somewhere in the back of me is like, why me? Like, is somebody else better suited to do this work? I will say for Haya, I feel less of that pressure. Like, I do think I'm the perfect person to be doing this work, but you still have the other feelings that come with it, which is just my my personality is in the middle of introverted and extroverted. And so sometimes having to be the face feels a little bit more of like the extroverted side that I'm used to. And so just being more comfortable, like taking up more space and having a bigger spotlight. And but then also wanting people to know that this is a community that we're building, and that we don't want to center ourselves per se in the community long term. But I do think it's important to like show your leadership so that you are given the like kudos, and you get your flowers along the way, because I do think it's important to like let your successes be known. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think what I shared, I think for me was also that, I mean, you didn't use the word imposter syndrome of like, are we the right people for the, or are we the right faces for this brand? And I think for me, I did experience a little bit of imposter syndrome, especially when we were trying to figure out our target audience, because a lot of folks that or a lot of the other communities from the outside states that we collaborated with, or I mean that we network with, they played collegiate ball, they played some type of competitive level ball, like club sport, and I didn't. Like, I played solely someone organized in school, but I didn't play competitively outside of school. I mainly played like kind of like street ball pickup, where you're in the playground and you're like, oh, people wanna play, and I didn't really have that more competitive, organized structure that you had. But I think that's what made Haya even more beautiful, was like we had two different experiences with basketball. One, mine was a little bit more non-competitive, more like pickup and in quote street ball in LA, and you had a little bit of taste of competition throughout high school. But I think it kind of helped us figure out like what is that sweet spot for the audience we wanted to have within Haya. So I think I quickly was able to overcome the like, are we the right basis for this brand that we're creating?
Yeah, because also basketball is its own thing in the DMV. Like, it is really competitive. Like, if you're not in club sports, it sounds like, I don't know, like, will people take you seriously? Like, there's a big basketball culture in the DMV area that I think we both didn't really know too much about until we took this deep dive.
Yeah.
So I understand why you would feel that pressure, but I do think it works in our favor, because people are either surprised if you didn't do basketball more competitively growing up, or it allows other people to feel like they can join. And in the future, we want opportunities, like clinics, where if you haven't played basketball a lot, or you're trying to freshen up on your skills, you can go and be essentially coached in a group setting. So people don't feel like you're too old to learn a new skill or to get back out on the court.
Yes, that is very true. You're never too old to start a new skill, a new sport. And that kind of reminds me a little bit of even my journey where I've never even played a single sport in my life, and I just joined my first like sport, and it is a new experience. It is super intimidating,
Yeah.
and it is really scary. So I really appreciate you all just speaking about how your personal experience with basketball is really what makes this your brand unique. And you even talked about in the beginning and in this conversation about how intentional you've been about the community that you are looking to even attract with your social media campaign, and in the conversations that you were having with people on a day-to-day. And so I'm curious, now that you're seeing the community flourish, and in a specific example that I wanted to share was, I was stalking the social media, and in that I was looking at some of the comments, how people are responding to your posts. And what I just noticed, it was that people are very excited, and they're in your comments, like just validating just the community that you've built. And there's so much support for the both of you, but then also just in general for the basketball league. There's a lot of engagement, and so I'm so curious, as you're seeing the community flourish, what makes you most excited about continuing to expand that? And is it what you envisioned when you were thinking about that social media strategy in the beginning?
Yeah, the first day of the league I definitely was on a high that whole weekend because we had no idea who signed up. We maybe knew 20% of the people that signed up, and the other 80% we were like, who? And then you could get a little bit of a sense based on who's following us on social media once we got the name of registrants, but we had no idea what it was going to look or feel like when we walked through those doors that first day. And it was such a relief to see like diversity in all sorts of ways. Like you had the height range, you had different body types, you had just, the list goes on. And so I was just really, really pleased that we had met a target demographic. I think there's always work to improve upon that, but I think as a starting point, we did pretty good. And I think a lot of people the league is not the best fit for everybody, but I feel like for most people, they enjoyed it. The competition level was good for them, and that they were able to reconnect with basketball in a way that they haven't before, because a lot of women don't get to play with refs in their adult years. It's more like pickup and just casual play. I will say, for us, what will determine our target, like meeting our target audience in the future, is potentially who we decide to continue partnering with and who to create new partnerships with. The county they were really great from the very beginning in helping us put this on. Like the logistics were run by them, and our role was really recruitment, branding, vibes, like creating that inclusive community. And so there were times where we needed to make sure, like, if somebody's joining and their ID, what's on their ID and the name they registered as isn't the same, like, is that going to pose an issue when they check in the first day? Or making sure that people's pronouns are respected and used, and like, so all those kind of things were on us to make sure we're consistent across the community in terms of inclusivity. But it is difficult with working with essentially the government to put on a community resource, especially in the climate we're living in today. And then there's opportunities I think it's really easy to offer Hoop As You Are and for it to attract a lot of cis straight women. Like, if you're not intentionally partnering with the right people. The one caveat I will say is that, again, women's basketball is very gay, so I think it will just naturally attract a lot of queer people. But I do think you have to make some intentional partnerships with other groups so that people really know that it's a spot for them, like, and that they can join. And so we're exploring partnerships with other organizations where their main demographic is the queer community, to learn from them, figure out how to partner, so that we continue to make the community even more diverse.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you kind of are alluding to this as you're looking ahead at, even the partnerships that you are seeking and looking to expand your community with. And so I'm curious if the season is moving along. It's almost coming to a close. What are some things that you and Mary are prioritizing for your brand in the next 3 to 6 months?
Okay, 3 to 6 months isn't that far. I was like, in the next 10 years. I don't know.
Just seeing the vision.
3 to 6 months. We're going to continue our open gyms for free through the end of July. We are in the works of thinking about what doing a league again looks like. We're still exploring partnerships, but trying to do it again potentially in the fall if possible, but if not, preparing for next spring, and then thinking about some type of membership model or baseline fee that people could contribute so we can continue providing gym space, and of course we don't want costs to be a barrier, so we would work with folks, but some amount of like initial payment so that we can continue booking space far enough out, because gym space is really hard to get. And so we really have to just figure out how we're going to have a more like financially stable plan. We're also getting merch. We're going to have t-shirts really soon, hopefully in time for our championship all-star game. That's next weekend. And as of now, I know elected officials' schedules change often, but one of our councilmen, our first openly gay councilman in our county, Councilman Class, was an office we connected with early on when creating this community, and he wants to come to this championship game and like say a few words and like share some certificates with the players. And so we just want to continue building those relationships with partners, and then making sure that Hoop As You Are is at the center of some of that media and press, so that we can continue attracting more folks. Like at the end of the day, we just need more people to know about this. So one, if you're on an island and you want to play basketball and you don't have a community, you can find us. And then two, so we have enough resources and community power to build. And the last thing I mentioned, and why that's so important, is because there's somebody, a part of the league, who does sports administration at a university and was able to connect us with the WNBA team in the DC area to get discounted tickets for a game. And so a group of us is going to be going to watch that game. And so we only found out about that just through networking with them. And so, the more people we can connect with and play basketball with, the better.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add is, in terms of looking ahead and just, again, as we're wrapping up the league, is just to continue the space that we're creating. Now that the league is closing out, we want to continue the momentum that we've built with Haya, continue networking and partnering with the folks that we had conversations with, starting with the initial stages of our journey with Haya, but also continue to expand what we're envisioning Haya to be by being in the right places and networking with the right people, and not necessarily as a transactional relationship, but we want that momentum and ongoing relationship with the people and folks that we've built and connections with. And then again, like, our goal is to have hopefully multiple league or multiple seasons of this league, but also continue the offerings we have with socials and open gyms and of course in the future clinics as well. So yeah, just more basketball, more safe spaces for the queer folks and women, and continuing what we want Haya to look and feel like.
Wow. Well, first of all, congrats on the upcoming championship game. I wish that was live streamed. That would be fun.
I know.
Okay, wait. It's funny that you mentioned that because at the beginning I did explore. Now I might look it up again because I think there could be a community resource to get it filmed. Unfortunately, we will not be in the championship game because our team already is kicked out of the playoff. But we will be in the All-Star game, so we still get to play. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. That sounds so fun. But yeah, thank you both so much for sharing your journey. And Amani, I love hearing your perspective on Haya as well. It has been so incredible to just hear you talk about how everything has come together in a very beautiful, intentional way. But also, I agree with Mary. It feels like it was the stars aligning with the connections that you're making. And I don't say that to mean that there wasn't so much work that you all didn't do. You guys were putting in work, having the conversations, pitching your vision to others. But these connections, as you were speaking this into existence, and these connections were coming your way as well. So you were also attracting this your way, and in hearing you both talk about that journey, as someone from an audience perspective, it does feel like you all were really truly meant to start this together. And I'm so excited to see the community grow, to see all the incredible things that you all mentioned here continue to flourish. And it's so beautiful that you are also doing it together. So I am so thankful to just hear the journey. And I always tell Mary, when I hear her talk about Haya and how it's come to be, it feels like only just a couple months ago we were talking about the idea, and now the league is ending, and you have your championship game. It's just evolved in such a beautiful way. So thank you for sharing that journey with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Thank you for guiding us through this conversation, Dahlia. And yeah, I was a little nervous, to be honest, and so it felt really good to talk about Haya. I can just appreciate you all's time.
Yeah, and as we're wrapping up, where can our audience find Haya on Instagram, your socials? Share that with us, please.
Yeah. At Haya Hoops, HAYA_hoops is where you can find us. From there, you'll be able to find like our personal social media as well. But as of right now, that's our only social media platform.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thanks, Moni. Thanks for sharing your perspective. Again, the audience heard a lot about me, but appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Creative Ora is a podcast production hosted by Dalia Zaragoza and Mary Figueroa. This episode is edited by Abdullah Kawish and is produced by akstudio.global.